In this session, we will discuss on the optional subject which is generally asked in the UPSC and Union Public Service Commission, civil service examinations, mains examination, and the subject would be agriculture. This optional subject which we are going to discuss here is agriculture. In the series of this agriculture, what we will discuss, what are the topics which covers this subject agriculture. What is agriculture now? Agriculture here it is having two papers in optional subject. In optional subject it is having two papers, paper number 1 and paper number 2. So what is paper number 1? In paper number 1, the points to discuss is what? Ecology and its relevance to man. What is basically the ecology is and how it is related to the man, how it is related to human. The discussion would be on this topic. And the questionnaire which generally comes from these topics would be related to these relevancy. That suppose the question will come that what are the important characteristics of any ecology which affects human, which affects man, which affects human life, which affects human beings. This may ask the question like this. So the ecology and its relevance to man, natural resources, what are the natural resources and why they are important, to whom they are important, why we use natural resources, what are the applications, what are the uses and utilities and utilization of natural resources. We will discuss also. We will discuss their sustainable management if the natural resources are there, which may take, which have many of the applications in real life, day-to-day life, and if they are important, so their sustainable management is also very important. Their use, their utilization is very important as well. And conservation is also very important. Well, the conservation is important because sustainable management is important, conservation is important, and because if all the resources will be vanishes at a time, then there would be a scarcity, there would be a lack of resources, and due to the lack of the resources there would be no feeding for the future concern. So natural resources are many, like agriculture. In agriculture there is a wood, there is a manure, lot many things are there, water is also there, forest is there, and trees are there. Agriculture is having many more things to discuss upon. And what physical and social environment as a factor of crop distribution, and crop distribution is also there. There is a cropping, and the cropping which is also called kheti, and the cropping distribution, and what are the physical and social environment and concerns for this physical and social environment as a factor for this crop distribution and production. Whenever there would be a production of crop, then there would be a supply, because for the feeding of the demand there should be there should be necessity of production of crop. Suppose there is need to feed the supply of what? Rice. There is a need to feed the supply of wheat, maize, cereals, pulses. So definitely they needs to what? Produce. They needs to get produced. And after producing, there would be a distribution. So what are the physical and environmental concerns which are important and plays a factor which will affect the what? Distribution and production of crops. And agroecology. Agro means which is related to agriculture. Ecology. And ecology which is environment. Having all the things around us, around what? This environment, that is ecology, that is a part of the ecology. So what is agroecology? Means agricultural ecology. That is called agroecology. And cropping patterns as indicator of environment. What is the cropping patterns? Why they are important? And how they are indicator to the environmental growth, environmental concerns, environmental development, environmental anything which affects environment, and environmental pollution and associated hazards to crop. So what are the environmental pollution? That may be air pollution, that may be water pollution, that may be noise pollution, that may be any kind of gaseous pollution, that may be plastic pollution, that may be any kind of such non-biodegradable substance pollution which affect the environment, and that effect can be addressed. How these effects can be addressed, how those things can be recycled again and again to what to affect the 3 R's, what is the recycle, reuse, and what reutilize, like this, renew. So, and associated hazards to crop, this is only called to be as what? This is also called to be as recycled, or this is also called to be as a circular economy, circular things, circular concerns, or circular, the things which will come into the cycle, again and again utilized. So what associated hazards to crop? What are the associated hazards to crop and animals and humans? How the environmental pollution is there and it's related, and related hazards to crop. What are the related hazards to crop? If suppose there would be an immediate avalanching to the crops with rainfall, is there a facility of crop insurance? Is there is a facility of crop? If suppose there would be a what beating is there, suppose there would be a rusting of crop would be there, then is there any concern which will not affect the farmers, and which always encourages and promotes the farmers that don't worry, your crop is somehow seems to be if non-affected. If there is such kind of hazards to the crop, so what are those hazards, and how these hazards could be addressed? And definitely what we'll discuss, animal and human, because always keep it into mind, then agriculture that cannot be insured with what? Animals and humans, because animals is supposed to be the livestock, which is in called to be as Pashudhan. So it means that what? Animals and humans, how the humans are important, how the animals are important. However, suppose the animals may be used for the manure purpose, their dungs, their cow dungs and the dungs of any of the animal, that may be used for the manure purpose in the what? Either traditional fields, either traditional crop fields, or whatsoever in the modern fields also. So and animals may graze the fields, and then what? And then definitely they will give a good amount of yielding to the milk or milk yield, because the grazing animals which gives more amount of milk and a good effective addressed milk which is having a high quality content in the milk for the nutrients definitely. And humans, and definitely who will handle these things? Definitely human beings. So animals and human beings, they are quite important. Climate changes would be there. If there would be a climate, what is climate? A certain amount of weather conditions that may happen in a year, that is supposed to be a climate. Weather means for a day or a two, that is supposed to be a weather. So there is a difference between a weather and the climate, and definitely climate change is there. Definitely it's a what? Nature, and nature is having a call to the climate change, and the climate change is there. Then international conventions, that they are also fixed for this climate change, because whenever this climate change is supposed to be with the increase in the population will increase, and the many of the activities, the production activities, utilization activities, distribution activities, that may increase, then that needs to address with the recycling. And then definitely there would be a fixation of international conventions to address these climate change, that may be man-made, that may be naturally, or whatsoever. That may be something like Davi Apada or anything else, natural conditions or man-made conditions, climate changes, that may be somehow looking like this, and global initiatives. So what are the international conventions and how that needs to be addressed globally in countries, then countries and countries. So like this only, this is supposed to be the climate change, and it's addressed to the what? International convention. Like suppose Ramsar sites are there, wetland sites are there, marshy land sites are there. They are important. Why they are important? They are having a spongy form. They are having a spongy characteristics who will what? Will soak the large amount of what? Either waste, either water also. And definitely when the water is getting to be sponged in those fields, they need to be conserved. They are called Ramsar sites. So Ramsar sites, for that Ramsar sites, definitely there is a what? International conventions, and the international convention that has to be signed by many of the countries and ratified by many of the countries from time to time, updated time to time. So that is why we need to address this climate change, international conventions and global initiatives, as well as we also definitely there must be a what discussion of greenhouse effect. How this greenhouse effect is there, how the global heating is to be increased. Global heating is increased now. Why global heating is getting to be increased? Because there would be what? There would be an increase. There would be an increase for the percentage of what? CO2, which is supposed to be carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is the main greenhouse gas that is going to increase, and that is going to increase, and this carbon dioxide is increased by the increase in the emission of carbon. That is why carbon neutrality is important. Up to 2070, up to 2050, this carbon that has to be emission zero. That is called zero emission of carbon. That is supposed to be and termed to be as the zero emission of carbon. So this is also a very quite question. This is a question. This is a very important question, and a research concept. It needs to address most of the researches, many of the scholars, many of the academicians, industrialists, and many of the industries. They are working on what? Carbon emission. They are working on the zero carbon emission tools. They are working on the zero carbon emission theme. If they are doing, because carbon dioxide, that is going to increase the heating effect in the environment. If once the heating effect would be increased, then definitely the ice caps, icebergs, and the glaciers that possessed by the rocky fields, by the what? By the mountains, that are having a very zero number, a very low number of temperature, then definitely that has to be held by the mountains they are called what? They are called the glaciers, and that glaciers may be melted down after increasing the temperature due to increase in the CO2 level, that is called the level of the carbon dioxide. If that is going to increase, then definitely there would be a condition immediately written in the syllabi, then global warming. Global warming would be there, then there would be what? Submergence of coastal cities, or the cities which are around the water beds. They may come into the contact of the water, and if the water bed would be increased after ruthless melting of the what? Icebergs or the glaciers, then definitely there would be they will threaten the life of the people or the persons which are having in or which are around the water beds or the water bodies, like rivers, like oceanic cities, coastal cities. That may be submerged. There may be a threat to the submerging of what? Coastal cities. So that is why this needs to address, and advanced tools for ecosystem analysis like remote sensing and geographic information system. Suppose there would be any need to know where the fire is getting to be there in the jungles, in the forests areas, and where the person cannot go by. It may be accounted by some drones, or the mechanism of drones, by some information technology through the or GIS system, or whatever the GIS system that has to be installed. Then definitely that is going to identify the location where these kinds of phenomena that is going to happen, or the natural phenomenon of subtrenching, or some more natural things that may be immediately addressed after happening. So if there would be a concern, or there would be an insurance of these events, it is called what? It is called to be as what? The proactive nature of these events. If the proactiveness that has to be governed, then that has to be also governed by the technology that is called remote sensing, as well as geographic information system that is called GIS. So this topic that has to be increased in what? Agriculture and cropping patterns in different agroclimatic zone of the country. So cropping pattern in different agroclimatic zones of the country, because there are many kinds of agroclimatic zones. Some zones may be more hot, some zones may be more cold, that may be somehow having the medium amount of temperature holding. So definitely there would be a different kinds of cropping patterns in different climatic zones of the country, and impact of high yielding and short duration varieties on shifts in cropping patterns. High yielding variety seeds are there, and short duration varieties on the sheets on the shifts in cropping patterns is also is there. And concept of various croppings, there are various cropping mechanisms, there are various croppings, and what are the concepts of these croppings. So what is the concepts of various croppings? And cropping is there. There are different kinds of mixed cropping is there. There may be a cropping pattern of what shifting cropping pattern is there, zooming cropping pattern is there, nomadic cropping pattern it is sometimes called to be as, or there may be a regular cropping pattern, mixed cropping pattern is there. So this is a kind of cropping pattern. Some traditional cropping pattern is there, modern type of cropping pattern is there. So there are many types of croppings. And farming systems are of many types, because in hill stations there is a step by step cropping pattern, but in most of the countries, in some of the countries there is there may be a cropping pattern in slanted or in the vertical direction cropping. Vertical cropping is there, horizontal cropping is there, simple plain area cropping is there. Many kinds of cropping patterns that may be employed in the different plowing systems. So organic and precision farmings. So what is organic farming? Definitely organic farming needs what? Needs to address the organic natured manure. Organic farming and precision farming is also there, and packaging of practices for production in important cereals, pulses, oil seeds, fiber, sugar, commercial and fodder crops. Because for package of practice for production of important cereals, because these things would be packaged, then distributed, and then goes to the near areas of what goes to the area for the concern, for the consumption, for the utilization of the consumer. Because once that has been packaged, before packaging there would be manufacturing. So definitely after manufacturing, then packaging, then distribution, and then final consumption would be there. And for that sake, definitely what are those things? Like cereals is there, cereals are important, and pulses are very important, and oil seeds are very important also. Fibers, for the any of the things, fibers are important. Fibers that may be consumed either within the body or that may be used for the rope purpose, they are also supposed to be fibers. So sugar is also there. Sugar is nothing but the immediate energy drink, immediate energy providers is the sugar. After taking sugar, then for some time definitely there would be a massive amount of energy in any body, in any of the person, any of the object. So definitely, however, the sugar is also supposed to be diagnosed in diseases as well. But sugar immediately for a normal human being, for a normal being, this sugar is working as an immediate source of energy. Definitely, if it is energy, so immediate source of energy, it needs to be produced and manufactured and then distributed and then finally comes to the consumption as well. Commercial and fodder crops. Fodder crop is fodder is which is called to be a chara, and chara is sometimes, many of the times used for for livestock and for animals, and they will chew this fodder, and definitely they will feed their stomach, and then they will and milk or the milching cattles, they need fodders, or fodder is needed by all, by either cows or other animals. Then definitely it is also needed by it is also needed to ruminants, and they are called ruminant. Why? Because they are going to chew the things, and throughout the day they are in a psychology that they are feeding and completely feeding. So what the important features are also there. Scope and various types of forestry plantations are also there, okay, and social forestry, agroforestry and natural forest, propagation of forest plants. Because if there is a more amount of forest plants, then definitely more oxygen would be created. There are many things. there more amount of fuel would be fed to all. So definitely there would be a forest, large amount of forest is there. If there would be forest, more forest area, and then there would be more what, more amount of water within the fields. That will increase the underground water table. And definitely forest products are also there, agroforestry is there, and value addition. What are those things which will add the value on this forest? How will it is going to increase? That is called forestation, that is called ped lagao. Okay, something like it is also called grow the forest, ped lagao. Okay, so if you will increase the forest and increase the forest area, increase vano ko badhao, forest area, and vano ko badhao, jeevan bachao, like this, and increase the life. So definitely, so that is the value addition theme for increase of the forest. That is also needed to what address in the syllabi. And definitely conservation of forest flora and fauna. So it is also the flora and fauna, jeev jantu it is also called. So there is a need to increase this forest, because in this forest there are flora and fauna which are going to stay. If they will increase, then there would be more biodiversity. That is called biodiversity. That is called jaiv vividta. It is called. If there would be more biodiversity, then there would be what? There would be more amount of people living in this planet, in this forest, and they are going to increase the beautification of the nature of this planet Earth. So that is why they will increase what? They will increase the more food cycle, food chain, food web. They will also ensure the food web, or that is, they will also increase the sahbhagita and sahbhojita. So that is, they are going to increase what? They are going to increase the interdependency of one species to the other. They will ensure and ascertain these things. So that is why we are going to discuss in this also in detail, in as a question answer. The last coming answers, in the last previous sessions, we will whatever answer, whatever question that has to be addressed. So we will address this, and we will address one by one answers, how the questions that has to be addressed, what are the thinking patterns which we need to, which someone needs to keep into mind to address the questions, to address the query. That much we will discuss here. So what are weeds and their characteristics? Because due to agriculture, in the agriculture patterns, there may be a growing of the weeds, naturally weeds. These weeds, what they will do, they are nothing but more than agricultural needs. They are just unwanted crops which just grow, and which will suck, and which will absorb the manure pattern, or the manure characteristics, or the what, or khat pani of what, regular forest or the crops. And that may cause a deficit to the what, to the whatever growing needs of the crops, important crops. That is why these weeds, what are their characteristics? Once these characteristics that may be diagnosed or known, then dissemination and associated with various crops, how they are associated, and their multiplications, how the weeds they are increasing, how the crops are increasing, and cultural, biological, and chemical control of weeds then needs to address. Once the weeds we know, and as we know now, weeds, and then what, and their characteristics, and then what, dissemination, how they are associated with various crops, how they are going to increase in a multiplication, they will increase in a number, one by one, and many more. And then cultural means Sanskritik, biological, Jaivik, and then what, chemical, and Rasainik control of weeds, or Rasainik Niyantrana, that is called Kharpatwar in Hindi. Okay, Kharpatwar in Hindi, it means Kharpatwar. It means that whatever pattas, whatever unwanted crops that has to be increased, that is supposed to be weeds, they will absorb the what, they will absorb the immediate nutrients of the crop which we needs to cultivate. So that may be what, that may be removed. And what is soil? What is soil? What is the physical, chemical, and biological properties of soil? Soil is called mrda. Mrda in Hindi, mitti, it is called soil. And process of, because soil is very important. Soil, because if soil would be there, that will what? If there would be plants also, that is also increase, that will also make the soil grip. They will also what, control that will also increase soil erosion of the soils. So soil is there, soil erosion is there. So once the soil is there, physical, chemical and biological properties, then process and factors of soil formation, how the soil is formed one by one, layer the layer, and then what, stratification, and then dumped, and that may be what, and that may be rose like a what, mountainous form. Soil of India. What are the soils of India? Some soil may be called black soil, some soil may be called alluvial soil, which is called jalod mitti. जल के द्वारा लुढ़काई गई मिट्टी, the kinetic behavior of water that is going to deposit these soils. So that is why it is called alluvial soil. And there are many more soil, like red soil is also there, and many more. Some chikni mitti is also there. Minerals and organic constituents of soils. So what are the minerals and organic constituents of soils and their role in maintaining soil productivity? So if there would be a qualitative, there would be a constituent or the composition of mineral as well as organic constituents of soil. So what are their roles in maintaining soil productivity? How the productivity and the what importance of soil is getting to increase by these constituents, which are of nature mineral and organic. And this must know that what is organic. Organic is the one which is having the presence of carbon and its isotopes. Or isotopes, what they are called? They are isotopes are the one which are having different forms of the forms pattern, which is having also the content of the carbon. So essential plant nutrients and other beneficial elements in soil and plants. And what are the other beneficial elements in soil and plants? Principle of soil fertility. What is soil fertility? Fertileness or the fertile characteristics of soil, what it is called. What is the principles of soil fertility? What is called the principle? What is the main theme of the soil fertility and soil testing? If there would be a fertility, for that ensurement, for the characteristics, for knowing the soil, for knowing the mrda or mitti, we need to what? We need to test it, that what kind of soil it is. Either it may be red soil, it may be black soil, it may be alluvial soil, it may be any kind of soil. Okay, so that may be tested. Either that soil may be of what type, type of cropping patterns would be addressed in these soils. Okay, what kind of water content that has to be retained and regained by the soil, by whatever soil pattern is there, whatever soil types is there. And fertilizer recommendation, and what kind of fertilizer that needs to be addressed in those soils for some growing of crops. So what are the recommendations for these fertilizers for any kind of soil after knowing the testing of the soil, after knowing the type of the soil and their testings, that what kind of fertilizers that can be absorbed by any soil, any type of soil, to get enriched croppings, to give surplus croppings. So integrated nutrient management is also there, biofertilizers is there, and loss of nitrogen in the soil, which is called a nitrogen fixation property of the soil. And some bacteria is also used for the nitrogen fixation. And this efficient and this loss of nitrogen, if there would be a loss of nitrogen in the soil, then what will happen? And nitrogen use efficiency in submerged rice soils is also there. And in rice soil there would be more amount of water is there, because if we are going to harvest the rice plants, then that needs to what, they needs more water. This must be also know. And definitely nitrogen fixation in soils. Okay, so what kind of bacteria is also important, and efficient phosphorus and potassium use is also there, and problem soils and the reclamation, soil factors affecting greenhouse gas emission. So these are some of the topics which we need to address in the in the agriculture, in the agricultural optionals. Soil conservation, we need to address integrated watershed management. So what is watershed management? Suppose there is a rainwater. Rainwater is the purest form of water, purest form of water, or pani or jal. Okay, suppose the water is coming and the precipitation is there after the condensation. Before the what? Suppose immediately there is a flowing water, then the sun rays there that are coming to these waters, and there will be a process of evaporation. After evaporation, there is a condensation, which is also called what? Sanganan. And then after there would be a what? There would be a precipitation, and after precipitation there is an increase in the precipitation as well. Then definitely what it is there, and definitely watershed management is there, and there is an increase in, or there is a what? There is a storage of, let us suppose, water, underground water, or the water which is coming from the precipitation form for the use of for any use, for the feeding to the livestock, for the feeding to the livestock, or for some agricultural purposes, any of the purposes. Okay, so these things are also very important. And soil erosion is there. If there would be soil erosion, then what will happen? Avalanching of soil is there, and then its management. Dry land, if we needs to address the soil erosion, definitely grow more and more plants and trees. Don't need to cut down much more trees. If the much more trees would be cut down, then how the soil would be eroded? So for the erosion, for the ensurement and certainty of for fixation of the soil erosion, there would be a what? There would be a soil erosion mechanism and management that has to be addressed mostly by planting more and more trees, which is called afforestation. This process is supposed to be afforestation. Everybody knows, and the application part that has to be seen many more places, and that is required as well in the large number, and that is also giving. That is why the more amount of oxygen, which will increase the what? Which will increase the more what? The living birth age, which is also called what? Which is also called the increasing amount of age criteria. Let us suppose, which is called, what is the how much, up to how much, what is the age, up to what age, or up to what number a single individual is living in and lives in a country out of 100. That is to be needed. So that will be increased when there will be more forest areas also, because there would be more fresh air that is to be governed and given to the persons, to everybody. And if there would be much more places like forest, there would be much more places like trees, definitely soil would be not to be eroded, and soil erosion would be controlled and conserved. There would be a conservation of soil for the erosion purpose. Dry land agriculture and its problem. Technology for establishing agriculture production in rained areas or rain-fed areas. Water and stabilizing agriculture production in rain-fed areas, because there would be many of the areas like which are having more amount of precipitations, good number of precipitation or rain that can be occurred in some of the areas, but in some of the areas there would be a less amount of rain that may come. Not enough amount of that monsoon that has to be applied in many more of the areas where there would be more hotness, more temperature is belonging to those places. So definitely there would be different types of technology that may be employed for the sustainable, for the what, balancing theme of the environment, for having some agricultural production also here in that places, in whatever amount of agriculture, because some of the agricultural some of the what areas that is having a more amount of fiber production, like tarbooj, kharbooj, kharif season, in whatsoever they are playing, or they are just cultivating. We are cultivating the different crops in whatever areas where there would be more power, where there would be more water. These kinds of like kharbooj, tarbooj, water lemon, these kinds of crops that may be increased, that may be grown up. And water use efficiency in relation to crop production, criteria for scheduling irrigation, and ways and means of reducing runoff, loss of agriculture water, rainwater harvesting is also there. Like this is the place where we increase, where there is a saving of, where there would be a good conservation of rainwater, that is called rainwater harvesting. And drip and sprinkler irrigation, sprinkle the फंवारेदार, that is called बूंद दर बूंद, and that is called बूंद बूंद irrigation or सिंचाई. Okay, so drip and sprinkler irrigation is there. Sprinklers are also there in the fields, which are going to what, which are going to give the amount of the irrigation. Drainage of water lodged soils. There are waterlogged soils. Waterlogged soils means those soils which are going to suck, which are going to contain or possess more of the water content. So what is the drainage? How the drainage is associated with these kinds of waterlogged soils. Quality of irrigation water. What is the irrigated water quality and effect of industrial effluents on soil, and water pollution and irrigation projects in India. What are the various irrigation projects that needs to address, that needs to govern? And farm management. What is farm management is there? Why important farm management, and scope, importance and its characteristics. Farm planning is there, because there are many of the things which will be scheduled like in commercial activities, which may be in a bulk amount of production activities. That may be a farm of, that may be some livestock farm, that may be some having some agricultural farm, that the farming sector that may be increased with the allied sectors with livestock as well. So there would be a mixed or hybrid kind of farming planning or farm deployment, farm and farm conservations or farming management is there. So definitely before coming into this farm activities, employing these farm activities, there is a need to plan these. There is a need to plan or having a complete niyojana in these type of areas, so that the investment that has not to be a bad practice. So optimum resource use and budgeting is also there. Immediately the topic which needs to be addressed. Optimum resource. What are the optimum resources which are need to practice these, which are need to get fulfilled, which are need to be optimized and make advantage of these farms for the farm, and that is called farm management. And after it, how much budgeting that has to be certain by these farms, so that these farm management or the farm activities, the activities inside these farmings, that has to be what, addressed properly, that may be go smoothly and gradually and in a cycle. So economics of different types of farming systems. What are the economic concerns of these farming systems? Marketing management study for development. And definitely, suppose there would be a bulk amount of cropping patterns that may come from the farms. Suppose there would be a dairy farms, there would be a poultry farms, there would be any kind of farms, there would be any kind of agricultural farms, there would be a more amount of production farms of any of the crops. So definitely after that may not be consumed in a house, in a family. What it needs to be distributed in a market, and it needs to be distributed in a market, then it needs means to get distributed, to come to the market. That is called market, and that is called what, distribution means. And after reaching to the market, it needs to address somewhat marketing means to sell them. That is called vipanan in Hindi, marketing. And that is why these all things are very important, that needs marketed intelligence, which we will also discuss. And price fluctuation and their control, because the price may be subjected to daily needs, the price may be subjected to market conditions, and there will be a slight fluctuations in the price also, their cost. Because why they are related? Because they are of great concern to the farmer or farming practice person, that because they needs to much more get after employing whatever they are having, the infused capital that may be addressed by minimum support price. So at least minimum support price, however, that may be of the what, governance, what the topic of the governance, that whatever market practices or whatever farmer is getting support for his allied activities, but in the open market also, there is a much more need to get whatever the budget that has to be infused in the agricultural products. That is why the profit is uncertain. Profit that may be ensured when there would be much more selling price than cost price. Then definitely cost price should be less than the selling price. Then definitely the profit that has to be certain and ensured. And that is why the price fluctuation and their control is of great opinion. So we will also discuss it as a question answer, and and the role of cooperatives in agricultural economy, types and systems of farming and factors affecting them, and agricultural price policy and crops insurance. Suppose there would be a crop failure by any means, by natural disaster, by man-made disaster, whatsoever disaster naturally occurring, more rainfall, there would be an avalanche, there would be a storm, there would be anything, let us suppose it happens, there would be an earthquake, let us happen, then what would be there? It would be a cause of concern to the farmer or the agricultural practitioner, so that it needs to be ensured, so that if there would be any kind of croppings that may be happened due to the failure of any natural disaster, any kind of disaster that has happened in the nature, then definitely that kind of cropping theme or the cropping price that needs to be addressed, that needs to be regained. Okay? Then forward, after having them some insurance. So that is why it is called crop insurance. And what agricultural extension, its importance and role, methods of evaluation of extension programs, socio-economic survey and status of big, small and marginal farmers and landless agricultural laborers. So they are of any important, because landless agricultural laborers may be there may be a low, their marginal farmers may be there. So that is why their infusion capital, their per day dhyadi or their per day wages, they are of great opinion, that will decide their future, that will decide their coming tomorrow, that they will come in a work or not, or they will be quite they are uncertain with what they will do in a day or two. So that is why agricultural laborers, that they are supposed to be landless. जमीन जिनके पास जमीन नहीं है, they are called what? Landless agricultural laborers. And the marginal farmers, they are having least amount of farming land or plowing fields, and big, small, any kind of farmers is there. So socio-economic survey that has to be addressed after for the optimization in the agriculture. And then training programs for extension workers. Okay, so for extension workers, some training programs that has to be addressed. Let us suppose there would be a like e-mandi, electronics mandi, either that electronics or technical means that needs to be addressed. They will just immediately contact to the purchaser of their crops, any of the agricultural crops, or they will immediately give a message to the any of the suppose sugarcane agriculturists are there, the agriculturists who are practicing sugarcane growing. Okay, so they will grow the sugarcane and they will just immediately contacted by a technology that your sugarcane is quite ready, then please where should I come and up to what time I should come. So by this technology, by the technology of electronics mandi or whatsoever, enam, or there are many more things. Okay, so there are many more things. So for that sake, training program is also there. Suppose soil health card is also there. There would be a concern of soil health card. However, any of the government policies that needs to be addressed effectively, not only for a name, that not only for any start or initial, that needs to addressed so properly, and that is also a responsibilities of all the farmers and agriculturists, so that they needs or they gets their rights or not, they need to ensure a certain. For that sake, they also, that is why if there will be a more profitability of agriculturists, then there would be, the farmers will not get suicide. There would be no other non-humanistic concerns for the agricultural practicing persons. Okay, so that is why for that sake there would be also a training programs, and definitely those programs is to ensure the good health of any farmers Okay, by literally, not by means of the training providers as well as who are taking the training. That is also their responsibilities, that they will take care of themselves, and if not, then how that care that has to be addressed, they will ensure. And definitely what, training programs for extension workers and role of Krishi Vigyan Kendras, and that is called KVK, Krishi Vigyan Kendra, in dissemination of agricultural technologies, whatever agricultural technologies are there. So role of what are the Krishi Vigyan Kendras means how the science that may be deployed to the agricultural activities for gaining what, more amount of optimized agricultural products and manufacturing, so that distribution is ascertained and the consumption is also assured. So non-government organization, that is called NGO, and self-help group approach for rural development. So how the rural development will come, when there will be what, more activeness of NGOs. Okay, how they will do? They will do not only by taking projects, but also ensuring those projects into the ground level and makes the dream come true. For what? For what, the effective agricultural practices. Okay, so this is also very important in the paper number 1. In the paper number 2, what is there? In the paper number 2 of the agricultural, cell structure, function of cell cycle, synthesis, structure and function of genetic material, and definitely, and law of hereditary. What is the law of hereditary is there? Okay, and chromosome structure, and chromosome structure is also there. We will discuss, and we will also discuss chromosomal abbreviations, linkage and crossover, and their significance in recombination, breeding, polyploidy and euploids and aneuploids, and definitely mutation and crossover. Very important topics are there, and they are also important because they are now also important in a computer science also, as an algorithms as well. Because these are naturally inspired algorithms which may be asked in some of the different objectives for the research purpose, and their role in crop improvement, how they are important in the crop, how the one crop is to be mutated or what, crossed with the other reputed. जैसे in, so for example we are doing having some kalam, जैसे कलम करते हैं किसी पेड़ को, and then another plant is getting to be embodied here and then wrapped up, और तब जाकर के there would be a what, there would be stem और जो तना होता है of that different plant, and that is going to feed different plant. That is called what, cropping. That is called intercropping. That is called what, कलम करना किसी चीज को. And then heritability is there. Sterilize, if we'll call sterility is there, and incompatibility is there, and classification and their application in crop improvement, cytoplasmic inheritance, and sex influenced and sex limited characters. That needs to be what, addressed in the paper number 2 of the agricultural products. Basically this paper is also discuss about the hereditary of the plants, how one plant is getting to fuse into the another stem plant or in the second plant, or how the genetically modified crops is to be ensured, or how this for more yielding purposes, for more optimization purposes. And history of plant breeding is there. What is the history of plant breeding? Modes of reproduction is there, and selfing and crossing techniques, organic evolution and domestication of crop plants, center of origin, law of homologous series, crop genetic resources, conservation and utilization is there, and application of principle of plant breeding, improvement of crop plant, and molecular markers and their application in plant improvement. Because after breeding of the plants, there would be an effective improvement in the plants. There would be a what, improvement in the plant objectives. And definitely what is heterosis and its exploitation, and somatic hybridization. Why hybridization in the plant is very important. What is somatic hybridization, and what is breeding for disease and pest resistance, role of interspecific and generic hybridization, role of genetic engineering and biotechnology in crop improvement, and genetically modified crop plants. Also this is very important. These are some of the topics which needs to address in this paper number 2. In the continuation is in continuation of the topics, we need to have seed production and processing technology. So why we need to produce the seeds? Because if suppose there is a what, if suppose there would be a germination, how the germination would be there, how the budding would be there, the germination and budding process that may be done after the seed. Whenever there would be seed, what kind of seed? This seed can be certified. That seed can be certified, and that certified seed, which is what, with seed training, after the training, which is called seed training and storage, and that seed that needs to be trained and that would be certified, and that what, that would be healthy seed, and that is bow for the purpose of production, that is called seed production. And then process, then germination is there, and then budding would be there, that is called bhutte putna in Hindi. And that is why DNA fingerprinting and seed registration is also very important, and we will discuss why it is important, role of public and private sectors in seed production. Not only the public sector, but private sector is also showing their interest in seed production. They will also have a seed production. They will take some of the regulatory mechanisms from the government, so they are required to follow them as well. And definitely there would be a role of public and private sectors in seed production. And then marketing is there, and intellectual property right, it is called IPR issues, and WTO issues, means World Trade Organization issues is there, and its impact on agriculture. Because for the in agriculture and allied sectors, there is a role of also WTO, which is called World Trade Organization. Because whenever these activities, whenever these crops that may be sale and purchase, import and export, they need what, there is a mechanism in the United Nations, there is a regulatory body in the United Nations that is unitedly in all over the nation, that is called WTO, that has been signed by majority of the countries for ensuring good amount of or healthy practices in the trade, that is ensured by WTO, World Trade Organization. So what is the principle of plant physiology with reference to plant nutrients? So what would the principle of plant physiology? Physiology means what? Plant, the structure of the plant, how that may get maintained and healthy. That is called plant physiology with reference to plant nutrition and absorption. And what absorption? Translocation and metabolism of nutrients and soil-water plant relationship. So what kind of relationship? Relationship is also a type of what? Soil-water plant. Okay, soil, then water that needs to be what? Taken by the plant. The food that may be taken by the plant, either by xylem or folium. Okay, so that is why it is the what? It is the translocation. That is why that has to be located in the different parts of the plant, either as a food or a water, by the folium and xylem, like this. So enzymes and plant pigments. What are the pigments of, or what are the photosynthesis? Why photosynthesis process is important? In the presence of in chlorophyll and in the presence of sunlight, having chlorophyll, which is ensured by the green color of the pigmented color of the plants. Okay, then plant will produce there in the presence of CO2 and sunlight. The plant will oxygen and sunlight, then definitely what, there would be a plant. Green plants make their own food then. And whenever the primary producers, which are green plant, make their own food, then they will grow, and definitely the dependency on those plants of other species, and then dependency on those species to some species, that will ensure now the food chain and the food web and the survival process in the planet or the earth. So that is why it is important. And what modern concept and factors affecting the process: aerobic and anaerobic respiration, and in the presence of some oxygen, without the presence of some oxygen, how the anaerobic process would be, or respiration would be there. And C3, C4 and CAM mechanism, or And what it is, what carbohydrate, protein and fat metabolism, growth and development is there. What is growth, what is development, and photoperiodism and vernalization. What photo means here, light. Periodism is there, what is vernalization is there, and what is plant growth substance. What are the substance which are responsible for growth of the plant, and their role in crop production, physiology of seed development and germination, dormancy and then stress physiology, that is drought, salt and water stress. Okay, so these are some of the things which will cause stress in the physiology of the any plant, any plant which needs to grow and develop. So what are these, we will also discuss. Which are the major fruits, plantation crops, vegetables, spices which are very also important. We are going, while cooking we are having something, we need spices as well. So spices and flower plants, flower crops, how the flower crops are important. Package practice of major horticultural crops are very important. And protected cultivation and high tech horticulture, post harvest technology and value addition of fruits and vegetables. Because there are many plants which are which gives the fruits, there are very plants which gives vegetables. There may be vegetables which are shooted, which are rooted and shooted. There may be many of the plants, many of the edible plants that may be shooted under the that rooted, that may be under the fields, and that may be shooted, means that may be above the fields. So how they would be addressed? They would be addressed differently. How they would, what they needs, what manure, what nutrients they need for their growth as well as development. So landscaping and commercial floriculture, medicinal and aromatic plants. Why medicinal aromatic plants? Medicinal aromatic plants are important. Medicinal plants, aromatic plants are important. They may be used for the perfume purpose also. They may be used for the scent or something like perfume, or having good fragrance style. Increases the personality, like this. Okay, increases the what, attractive personality also, na? So medicinal plants, why medicinal plants is there, why Ayurveda plants is there? They will increase the boosting capacity, they will boost the they will boost the antibodies within the human body, within any of the object. That is why they are important. Role of fruits and vegetable in human nutrition, like this. Diagnosis of pest and diseases of field crops are there, vegetable, orchard and planting crops, and their economic importance. Once the disease has been ensured, may be encountered and monitored in the pest, how that could be addressed. Classification of pest and disease and their management, integrated pest and disease management, storage pest and their management, and biological control of pest and diseases by some of the methods, by having some pest controls, by having some controllery mechanisms for controlling the pest, so that they may consume less amount of crops, they may ensure they may do less amount of damage to the crops. And epidemiology and forecasting of major crop pest and diseases. Epidemiology and plant quarantine measures, how the plant that may be quarantine, and pesticides and their formulations and modes of action. So one more thing which is very important, food production and consumption traits in India, how the food that can be produced, how that may be consumed in India. Food security, the Food Security Act 2013, how that is important to growing population. Why we needs to address, why we needs to build what the like Food Corporation of India, why there is a need to store the foods for some abnormal condition, or for some there should be some good amount of storage of foods also. Vision 2020 is what there, and region for grain surplus, and if there would be more amount of grain, that needs to be exported to increase the money and to increase what, the revenue of the revenue, so that other developmental works may be ensured also. National and international food policies, because if we need to address, if suppose there is a need to address the good trading practices, there would be a keen need to know the national and international food policies which are associated. And production and procurement distribution constraints, what are the limitations which needs to address for productions, how much production, above what production export should be ensured, encouraged. That is also need. So after what surplus production, how much amount of that grain, how much amount of edibles that needs to be stored and that needs to be export. This is also important. And procurement, what needs to be purchased, okay, to ensure the balanced diet of the country personnels or the country people, citizens like this. And distribution constraints. So what are the constraints which are related to the distribution purpose also? Availability of food grains, how much food grains is available to ensure, to predict, that is called a future concern, future market concern of the insurance of the food, to insurance of the food, or what kind of food security in the India. If there would be any kind of food insecurity, if suppose there would be a person who is not secured, who is not feeded up by the food throughout the day or a night, that is a cause of concern. Is in this modern India, in this modern country, in any of the country also, for any of the land, for any of the territory. Then what? Per capita expenditure on food. So per capita means per person. Capita here symbolize person. So how much person on food that needs to be addressed? How much calorie that needs to be intaked by an individual to assure its living, good amount of living, and that will ensure the type of poverty, that it would be above the poverty line or below the poverty line. So that needs to be that needs to be recommended by some Tendulkar committee, or that needs to be recommended by many of the committees. How they define the types of the poverty? So they will define by either by the calorie intake, by any other means, by money means, by any of the means. Knowing any of the means, any of the parameter, how the poverty that can be understood, so that the person that may be categorized into somewhere more growing, more having more concerns, more economic concerns, or least economic concerns, or very poor to poorest. And that is why trend in poverty, what are the regular trends in the poverty, and public distribution system, that is in English it is called PDS, that is called public distribution system. And that is why it is called what? Galle ki dukaan. Galle ki dukaan, that will ensure what? Food grains in less amount of what, or limited or constant amount of prices, the food grain that can be ensured, to fix that everybody should take at least minimum amount of food to survive. So that is why this is called public distribution system. And below poverty line population, and below poverty line, those person who are under below poverty line, they needs more amount of grain amount, and as compared to above poverty line person. So targeted public distribution system, it is also sometimes called TPDS. And policy implementation in context to globalization. So what is globalization? Globalization means what are those policies which needs to be implemented to ensure the food production, to ensure the food security in the citizens, to ensure the food security in the country or within the territory. And processing constraints, we will also discuss, and relation of food production to national dietary guidelines and food consumption patterns. What kind of food consumption that needs to be consumed, and what are the motivating factors, so that what kind of food that needs to be consumed for the healthy life. That is also a case in this agricultural second paper, which is also of what? UPSC optional subject. And what? Food based dietary approach to eliminate hunger. So there would be a case of hunger sometimes. Hunger means without having food, or with having least amount of food, or sometimes there may be a chance, there may be a condition of having hunger to someone. So at that time, whenever there would be a hunger by any of the means, either a person cannot get that much amount of food, either that much amount of safety, security, or that much amount of moral to live, that may be a cause of some hunger also. At that time, what is the things, or what are the precautionary measures before precautionary measures, these things should be known to everybody, should be known to the optional, as an optional subject also, to known to any of the known person, that what are the food based dietary approach to eliminate hunger and nutrient deficiency. And nutrient deficiency is also because if there would be no balanced diet intaken, suppose somebody is taking diet and that is not called to be a balanced diet, then definitely what will happen, definitely there would be a deficiency of any of the nutrient inside the body of any of the, either human, either of the animal, either of the livestock, either of the agriculture, anything. So it would be there what, nutrient deficiency, or if there would be agricultural nutrient deficiency, then that will create one unhealthy cropping. Unhealthy cropping will give least amount of production, of if the production would be more, then that would be unhealthy. And if we will eat that kind of unhealthy crop, then definitely we will not get any kind of benefit, least amount of benefit, or that much not amount of benefit which we are desired anybody needs. So micronutrient deficiency is there, and protein energy malnutrition and protein calorie malnutrition, PEM and PCM is also there, and micronutrient deficiency and HRD in context of work capacity of women and children, and food grain productivity and food security is there. These are the topics which needs to address. Many more of the topics which we have discussed yet here only in this lecture, and definitely we will elaborate them now. What is the work, what is the future course of action in the coming lectures, in the coming sessions. Definitely we will discuss the paper, we will take the questions, previous questions, the present questions, the forecasted questions, predicted questions, or essay randomly questions, or we will take the freelance question or the freelance discussion, so that this session is not only limited to optional, this is not only limited to the practicing optionals, those who are going to give the civil services mains examination, but they will also be these things would be applied to the currently applied to anywhere to get benefit for the informations, also for boosting the knowledge purpose, or having the sound mind and thought as well. So we will discuss in these agricultural practices. They are of very common use, everybody, most of the things everybody knows, because India is completely an agricultural country. Everywhere most of the people, they are known to agriculture, they were sometimes known to agriculture, they are presently known to agriculture, or they are more interested to have agriculture after getting wealthy. They will take some farms, they will take some these things, plowing fields, like this they will do, everybody do, most of the people do, they will invest on the agriculture. So for these things, what we will do, for these things we need to address these sessions also, because these are known facts, and most of the facts that may be known by this session, and if we know, then there would be more angle which would be added to know much in these sessions. So in the coming lectures, in the coming sessions, we will discuss thoroughly about the agriculture, either as an optional subject to the CSE or UPSC CSE, and CSE examinations and civil services examinations as an optional subject, or in the preliminary exams also. Sometimes if the question may comes from the agricultural touching portion, that may also boost to know the answer, what would be the option. And if the practicing persons regarding this agriculture will see it, then definitely there will be a Hindi version of this topic also, of this session we will discuss step by step. Iska Hindi version we will also provide, and definitely जो भी session है, we will also discuss, we will also give this into a bilingual or Hindi English mode also. So this is all for the session which we were discussing about the agriculture.